Imagine this. It's thousands of years in the future, and humanity doesn't live on Earth anymore. Well, not the Earth you'd recognize. Instead, 8 billion people are crammed inside massive steel and concrete cities with a capital C. Underground labyrinths where no one has seen the sky in generations, where every moment of existence is carefully regulated, and where the greatest threat to society isn't aliens or natural disasters, but something far more insidious: progress itself. Now throw in a murdered scientist, a detective who hates robots, and a partner who might just be the most advanced robot ever created. Welcome to Isaac Asimov's The Caves of Steel, a science fiction mystery that's been blowing readers' minds since 1954, and trust me, it still hits different today. So what makes this book such a landmark in science fiction? Well, for starters, Asimov basically invented a whole new genre here, the science fiction detective story. Before The Caves of Steel, these two worlds rarely collided. You had your hard-boiled detective novels with tough guys solving crimes in smoky rooms, and you had your science fiction with spaceships and ray guns. Asimov looked at both and said, why not both? The result is something that feels simultaneously classic and completely original. A murder mystery wrapped in social commentary, dressed up in futuristic clothing. Welcome to Visual Fantasy Book Recommendations, the channel dedicated to fantasy and science fiction book summaries, reviews, and recommendations. It is very helpful if you hit the like, comment, subscribe, and share. Help build my channel, and let's take a look into the best fantasy and sci-fi realms out there. But here's the thing that really makes this novel special. It's not really about robots or murder at all. It's about us. It's about fear, prejudice, and what happens when society reaches a breaking point. And somehow, 70 years after it was written, it feels eerily relevant to our conversations about automation, immigration, and what it means to be human. Let's set the stage without spoiling anything, because this mystery is absolutely worth experiencing fresh. The story follows Elijah Bailey, friends call him Lige, a plainclothes detective in the New York City Police Department. But this isn't the New York we know. This is a future where Earth's population has exploded, and humans live in enormous enclosed cities, artificial environments where every aspect of life is controlled and optimized. People move through tunnels on conveyor belts called strips, eat synthetic yeast-based food, and most have never seen the actual sun or felt real rain. Into this claustrophobic world comes news of a murder. A prominent scientist from Spacetown, a separate colony where the spacers live, those humans who left Earth centuries ago to colonize other worlds, has been killed. The victim is Dr. Raj Sartan, and the implications of his death could trigger a crisis between Earth and the outer worlds. Bailey gets assigned to the case, but there's a catch. He's forced to work with a partner sent by the spacers themselves. Daneel Olivaw. The R stands for robot. Bailey, who already harbors a deep-seated resentment toward robots. They're taking human jobs, after all, including his own father's, now has to solve a murder alongside one. The investigation takes them through the layers of city society, from the crowded communal kitchens where millions eat their meals, to the dangerous yeast vats that feed the population, to the mysterious Spacetown itself. Along the way, Bailey has to navigate not just the mystery of who killed Dr. Sartan and why, but also his own prejudices, his troubled relationship with his wife Jessie, and the growing realization that the society he's dedicated his life to protecting might be fundamentally broken. The tension builds beautifully as Bailey uncovers conspiracies, faces riots, and begins to question everything he thought he knew about robots, spacers, and the future of humanity itself, all while racing against time to solve a case that could determine the fate of Earth. Now let's dig into what makes this book really sing. First off, the characters are phenomenally well drawn, especially for a science fiction novel from the 1950s. Elijah Bailey isn't your typical detective hero. He's tired, middle-aged, bureaucratic, and honestly kind of a bigot at the start. He's a product of his environment in every way. Suspicious, fearful of change, clinging to the familiar even when the familiar is suffocating him. But Asimov makes him deeply human and sympathetic. You understand why he feels the way he does, even when you don't agree with him. Daneel Olivaw is equally fascinating, And this is where Asimov's genius really shines. Daneel is so perfectly human-like that even Bailey keeps forgetting he's a robot. He's polite, logical, and genuinely seems to care about Bailey's well-being. But is he really conscious? Does he actually feel anything? Asimov never quite answers that question, and the ambiguity is delicious. The dynamic between Bailey and Daneel, the suspicious human and the patient robot, becomes the emotional heart of the novel. The supporting characters are equally compelling. Jessie Bailey, Lige's wife, represents the fears and superstitions of everyday citizens. Commissioner Enderby shows us how institutions can be both well-meaning and utterly inadequate. Dr. Festolf, the spacer roboticist, becomes a voice for progress and change, though whether that change is good remains an open question. The themes Asimov explores here are incredibly rich. At its core, this is a book about the fear of change and the other. The city dwellers fear robots because they threaten their jobs and way of life. They fear spacers because they're different, seemingly superior, and their very existence highlights Earth's stagnation. There's also this brilliant meditation on overpopulation and resource scarcity. The entire society Asimov creates is built on a knife's edge, constantly one disaster away from collapse. But what really elevates the book is how it tackles prejudice and the construction of the other. Bailey's hatred of robots isn't presented as simply wrong. Asimov shows us exactly why he and millions of others feel this way. Robots really are taking jobs. The cities really are overcrowded. The fear is rational even if the hatred isn't justified. It's a nuanced approach that respects the complexity of social problems rather than reducing them to simple good versus evil narratives. The writing style is clean, efficient, and surprisingly modern. Asimov doesn't waste words. There's no flowery prose here. Instead, you get sharp dialogue, clever plotting, and a pace that keeps you turning pages. He trusts his readers to be intelligent enough to follow complex ideas without having everything spelled out. The world building happens organically through details dropped into the investigation rather than through info dumps. You learn about the moving sidewalks, the communal dining, the personal spaces, private bathrooms, basically the only private spaces people have, all through Bailey's experiences. The mystery itself is genuinely clever. Asimov plays fair with the reader. All the clues are there if you're paying attention, but the solution still manages to surprise. More importantly, the mystery serves the themes. The question of who killed Dr. Sarton becomes inseparable from questions about the future of humanity, the nature of consciousness, and whether people can overcome their prejudices. So what was Asimov trying to do with this book? On one level, he was exploring the consequences of his own famous 3 laws of robotics in a complex, realistic setting. But more deeply, he was grappling with the anxieties of his own time, the 1950s fear of automation, the tensions of the Cold War, the questioning of whether technological progress really meant human progress. The genius is that these themes remain relevant. Replace robots with AI or automation, and you've got contemporary debates about ChatGPT and self-driving cars. The city dwellers' xenophobia toward spacers echoes modern immigration debates. The environmental crisis hovering in the background feels even more urgent now than it did in 1954. Who should read this book? Honestly, almost anyone who enjoys good storytelling. If you love mysteries, the whodunit here is satisfying and fair. If you're into science fiction, the world building is immersive and thought-provoking. If you care about social commentary, there's plenty to chew on. The book works on multiple levels simultaneously. That said, it helps to have some patience with 1950s conventions. The gender roles are dated. Jessie is largely confined to domestic concerns, and there aren't many female characters with agency. Some of the technological predictions are quaint now, but these are minor quibbles in what remains a remarkably prescient and engaging novel. Here's the bottom line. The Caves of Steel deserves its status as a science fiction classic, and not just for historical reasons. This is a book that works. The mystery is engaging, the characters are memorable, the world is fascinating, and the themes cut deep. It's rare to find a book that's both a page-turner and genuinely thought-provoking, that entertains while making you question your assumptions. If you've never read Asimov, this is an excellent entry point. It's more accessible than the Foundation series and showcases his talent for both plotting and big ideas. If you're a science fiction fan who somehow missed this one, you owe it to yourself to fill that gap. And if you're just looking for a damn good detective story that happens to be set in the future, you're in for a treat. The book also kicks off a series. Asimov wrote sequels following Bailey and Daneel, exploring their relationship and the future of Earth. But The Caves of Steel stands perfectly well on its own. You can read it as a complete story and be satisfied, or use it as a gateway to a larger universe. What strikes me most about this book is how it manages to be both cynical and hopeful. Asimov doesn't shy away from showing humanity at its worst: fearful, prejudiced, violent, short-sighted. The cities are dystopian nightmares where privacy barely exists and every resource is stretched to the breaking point. But throughout it all, there's this stubborn belief that people can change, can grow, can overcome their worst instincts. That belief is embodied in Bailey himself, in his gradual transformation from prejudiced cop to someone who can see past his conditioning. So yeah, pick up The Caves of Steel. Enter Asimov's claustrophobic future Earth. Follow Bailey and Daneel through their investigation. Think about what it means to be human, what we owe to each other, and what kind of future we're building. And enjoy a cracking good mystery while you're at it. Because at the end of the day, that's what great science fiction does. It uses the future to help us understand the present, and entertainment to sneak in the medicine of difficult truths. Trust me on this one. You won't regret the journey into these particular caves of steel. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more great content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.